During my MBA program, I got to know a lot of really smart people and I saw their apartments. And I didn't understand how they were able to perform at such a high level when they were coming back to an apartment that was, quite frankly, a mess. And so I thought, higher people are missing something here. If they could have organized homes, how much farther could they go? How much better could they perform? Networking is everything. But at the time, I found it horrifyingly cringy. It felt so inauthentic. I was like, what do you mean? I'm just supposed to go up to people and tell them about myself? This is crazy.
Hi, Lucy. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here. You are the founder of Edits, a San Francisco-based boutique professional organizing company. Tell us a little bit about how you started this business.
It was a roundabout way, but two things happened. One thing that happened was I realized that I was not moving in my previous career the way I wanted to. I had been a nonprofit fundraiser at a big university. I got a little bored and wanted to accelerate my career, went and did an MBA program, started to look for fundraising jobs after that MBA program, and realized I was just going to be doing the same job, more zeros at the end of it. And I thought, gosh, that's not really what I wanted out of this whole MBA experience. And the other thing that happened was during my MBA program, I got to know a lot of really smart people and I saw their apartments. And I didn't understand how they were able to perform at such a high level when they were coming back to an apartment that was, quite frankly, a mess. For me, the reason I was able to keep up in a high level program was because I had an apartment that supported me and was a place where I could do my work and get some good sleep. And so I thought, higher people are missing something here. If they could have organized homes, how much farther could they go? How much better could they perform? So that was the genesis of, can I help people get organized? Is this a business? Let's try it out.
No, I love it. I love it. And there's so much depth in it right off the bat because here you are, an Ivy League school graduate. You are unfulfilled in a job. You're good at it, but you're unfulfilled. And much like many people listening to the podcast, you're in a position where you're like, I want to start my business and I don't know what to do. And you have this moment where you realize this is what I want to do. But here's the question. If this is the only thing you would have been good at, perhaps life would have been simpler. I'm great at organizing. This is it. I'm going to do it. But that's not the case. You are good at many other things. And many entrepreneurs are that way as well. They have multiple skills. So walk us through the process of realization and deciding, yeah, I'm good at all these things, but this is what I want to do. How does one go about that?
First, it was, can I do this? Is this something that's a real business? And then really committing to it was actually quite a challenge because I didn't go into my MBA program with the idea that I was going to be an entrepreneur. I would never have in a million years guessed I would ever start a business. That was not something I identified with. But then it became option one is gone. What's my backup plan? Okay, now I'm gonna figure this out. But I think what made me go all in was realizing how it fires me up. And it makes me creative. Like when I think of, this sounds so crazy to people, but when I think about how we organize, how it helps our families, how it helps our jobs, I get inspired and I want to talk about it more and I want to share with people. When I was in my MBA program, they taught us a lot about networking and networking was everything. And it's true, networking is everything. But at the time I found it horrifyingly cringy. It felt so inauthentic. I was like, what do you mean? I'm just supposed to go up to people and tell them about myself? This is crazy. Once I started my organizing business, I can't stop telling people about what I do. Like it just flows off my tongue. It's so natural. And so when you're that excited about something, it's easy to say, all right, this is the thing I'm going to commit to, even though could I make more money doing something else? Sure. Could I be more famous doing something else? Sure. But does that really fulfill me? So much. So it's easy to commit.
It's almost like really digging deep into your heart and thinking, what is the thing that excites me the most? I love how you said it's something that gets me fired up. I love even the visual of you feeling fired up in the moment when trying to make this decision. But let me ask you this question, and you said this twice already, which is a great thing that most people starting a business also think about, which is that, is this a real business? So many of us have a dream or a passion or something that gets us fired up, right? But it may not be a real business. So when you have that realization, I'm like, is something here? Is there? What are some of the steps you did to validate this idea?
Yeah, first of all, I just started by seeing if anyone out there was doing it. And so I started my business 10 years ago when professional organizing was not as much of a thing as it is now. For example, I started my business the year that Marie Kondo's famous book was published in the United States. So this was a different landscape, but there were professional organizers. The National Association of Professional Organizers has been around for 30 some years. So I just looked at the competitive landscape. Who's out there? What kind of services are they providing? Who's their target client? What are they charging? What's their sort of business structure? And coming out of an MBA program, I got to be honest with you, I wasn't impressed. Not a lot of people in this business come from a business background. They come from, I love organizing for my friends and family. I should probably make some money doing it, as opposed to me going, I see a gap in the market and I want to fill it. And for me, the gap in the market was educated professionals living in cities, because so much of the organizing content then, and even still today, is targeted at a suburban home and kind of assumes the presence of a stay-at-home mom or wife. Whereas where I live, the friends that I have, the people I know, that's not reality. We're living in like apartments and condos and smaller spaces, weird old houses, and every adult's working because you have to pay for a lifestyle in a big city. So yeah, so really seeing that gap in the market and the gap in professionalism that existed in the industry let me know there's a place for me here.
Yeah, people living in cities. I used to live in New York City. We don't have a lot of space. So you have to be very careful about what you bring into the house, how long it stays, and where it stays. And then for others who are not living in New York City's smaller towns, anything smaller than New York, LA, right? San Francisco, where you have a house, there's a plethora of stuff. People have so much stuff. Now they've overflowed their garage and now they cannot park their car in the garage. So on both ends of the thing, this is something that is needed, either to be able to organize, to stay lean, or to be able to just get rid of stuff, which is part of organization. But let me ask you this question, right? This is more than just organizing things. This is about a mindset. Tell us a little bit about, in the 10 years that you've been running the business, what are the types of people and their mindset like who usually come to you? And what is the type of transformation they end up having in their mindset, in their personality, having gone through this process?
A lot of people come to me and say, I need help organizing, but you know what the problem is? The problem is that I don't have enough storage space. And people have said this to me in all sizes of home. I truly mean from like sub 1,000 square feet all the way up to tens of thousands of square feet. Everybody tells me the problem is that I don't have enough storage space. So my job is to help them right size for the space that they have and create the mindset of, this is the space that I have. These are the boundaries that are available to me. How can I create the best life possible within these boundaries so that I can manage it, so that my stuff and my mess doesn't take over my life and I'm managing my space instead?
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Why is it important? The television and the media shows, here's Mark Zuckerberg in a movie and he's working so hard and just throws the can of Coke and it just lands in a pile of rubbish. That guy's a genius, because being a messy is just means you're so busy and you're so important. And that's not real, is it?
That is not real. And I will say I agree with you in one sense, because I don't think an organized space is the goal. That's a dumb goal. An organized space is the means to achieve your other goals. So when I talk to people, I want to know what they're trying to do with their space. Do they have fitness goals? Do they have goals for their family? Do they have professional goals? Do they have goals to pick up a hobby? Your space can either support that or really detract from that. If you're trying to start a workout routine, if you haven't organized your wardrobe and your equipment so that it's easy for you to access and quick, you are not going to start that workout routine, because the friction there in that process is just enough to get you to say, you know what? I don't feel like it today. So it's really about identifying what your life goals are and then using your organizational systems to shape a world where it's easier for you to achieve those goals.
I love it. So I honestly didn't think about it until you just mentioned it, that organizing things for the sake of organizing things is dumb. And probably that's part of the reason why most people don't end up organizing anything, because there's no goal tied to the end of it. So your process is to be able to work with your clients to first understand what is it that they're trying to get to.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then what happens once they have articulated that? What do you usually do to be able to carve out or plan out a process for them?
I usually do the same 3-step process with everybody. Obviously, there are nuances to each project, but we always start by thoroughly inventorying and decluttering a space. So I pull everything out. I'm talking about every sock, every paper clip, every paper cup that got in the back of a cabinet. I pull it all out. And almost everyone is really surprised by what they have that they didn't realize they have, that they don't need, that is not contributing to their life. And that noise matters because everything that we have in our homes that we don't need and don't use is standing between us and the things that we do need and we do use. So the decluttering part it's the lion's share of most projects. Then we get to the part that everybody thinks is organizing, which is where does stuff go and what containers do we need? That's like what everyone's so excited about. And I don't let anybody do that until we've done the decluttering, because how am I going to pick out containers for you if I don't know exactly what you need to store? Because it matters. I can't get the same bin for everything. It doesn't work like that. And then we finish up the project by installing all the containers, getting closets installed if necessary, any sort of handyman stuff that needs to happen, put everything in the containers, label it, take a picture. That's it.
The decluttering process, you talked about it being noisy because obviously every single paper clip is coming out. You do it room by room. Is that the way you go about it?
I
And what is
do,
that
yeah.
like? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, what is that like emotionally for your clients to be able to see all of that? Because there's a huge emotional impact on this, right?
There is a huge emotional impact, and it can go a lot of different ways. Some people are raring to go and they're like, I have been craving this. This is going to be a huge weight off. I've literally had people tell me that they feel like they lost 10 pounds after we decluttered their closet because it's just such a lift off. For other people, it can feel like a really big slog, and like it brings up emotions that they didn't realize were going to come up. It brings up other issues that they didn't realize were going to come with organizing. A lot of what I deal with is the tension of moving between life phases. So say you were like a super athlete in your 20s and you loved to go skiing and hiking and camping and you had all this gear, and then you met the love of your life, you got married, you bought a house, you started having kids, and you turn around and you haven't gone skiing in 10 years. And recognize and the moment that you realize that is the moment I come along and I'm in your garage and I go, these skis are 10 years old. Tell me about this. And that's hard. It's really hard to realize, oh my God, this is where I am. I didn't really realize it, but this is where I am. And now I have to make a choice. Am I still a person who's going to go skiing? And if I am, now I have to do something about that. Now I have to buy my season pass. Now I have to get out make sure the clothes don't have holes in them. Now I have to carve out time in my winter. I'm going to go skiing now. And if I don't have time to do that, I have to accept that. And that's really hard. Like reconciling our past self, our current self may not be the same person. And that's okay, but it's tough.
When talking to you right now itself, I'm starting to think about myself because in a way it's about holding on to an identity that
Yes.
there's no longer. I have two bicycles in the garage that I haven't ridden in so long, but I'm still holding on to that identity somehow that I will ride the bike. So how do you come to terms with that? Because obviously sometimes it's not that easy for somebody to let go, especially when there are partners involved. Maybe the wife is like, yeah, we need to get rid of this. You've never used this for X number of years. And the husband is like, yeah, but I will do it. It's still good. Like, how much space is it really taking? How do you solve conflicts like this? What's your methodology?
My methodology is to ask the question and explain the trade-offs. I never make a decision for people, and I really encourage people to not make decisions for their spouses. I really believe in empowering everyone to own their own things. I think it gets really messy when we try and make decisions for other people, even if we love them very much and we're married to them. I always ask the questions, not just whose skis are these, do you need them or not? But like, when was the last time you went skiing? Who do you usually go skiing with? If you were to pick up skiing again, do you want to ski on these skis or are you going to get new ones? These detailed questions that really help people make the concept of I'm a skier real and tangible and actionable. And I explain the trade-offs too. I'm not going to tell you to get rid of these skis, but what I will tell you is they're going to take up this space. And here's how we're going to store them. Are we going to mount them on a wall? Are we going to get a rack? And if we do that, then we're going to have to make a decision somewhere else that frees up that space, because back to, I think the problem is that I don't have enough storage space. That's not the problem. The problem is that we don't have the right amount of stuff for the space that you have.
Interesting. What about wastefulness? Sometimes people have spent money in buying things. They might emotionally understand, I'm not using it, but I don't want to get rid of it because it's still good. I don't want to waste it. They might be open to donating it. The fact that they have exchanged their hard-earned dollars for something that they're not using right now, they will use it someday. How do you help them work through that?
The sunk cost fallacy is very real in my line of work. And that's what this is, right? This is thinking, I've already paid for this, so I should keep it in the hopes that I will spend more money and energy using it in the future, right? So you're throwing good money and energy after already spent money and energy. I call that out to my clients and say, just because it has value doesn't mean you have to be the one to get value out of it. And furthermore, if what an object represents to you is its monetary value, let's turn it into money. Like it doesn't, most things, there are exceptions, but most things do not increase in value over time. So if what it means to you is money, let's turn it into money. And then that's liquid and you can do what you want with it. Our wealth should not be stored in things that degrade, get dusty, get dirty, possibly break. That's not how we should store our wealth. So I get very practical about it.
And when you say let's turn it into money, you're talking about selling it?
Exactly.
There's a very famous line: how we do anything is how we do everything. Tell us a little bit about how your professional life and starting a business, not just doing it for yourself, but helping others go through a massive transformation. These characteristics, these traits, how does it infer upon you as a person and your personal life?
I will tell you there has been a huge change in how I approach material goods. When I started my business, I was always organized, but I still do it to a certain extent. I loved beautiful things and I always wanted more beautiful things. And I started doing this work and I realized that no one is made happier by more beautiful things. Some beautiful things can add value to your life in certain ways, but they don't make you happier and they don't make you a different person. And it was the exposure therapy of just seeing this happen over and over again with all of my clients that really made me think, you know what? It doesn't matter to me as much anymore that I have more and more beautiful things in my life. It actually really makes me think very carefully about the objects I bring into my home because I just have seen over and over again the costs, how expensive it is to add things to your home because once something's in your home, you have to care for it, you have to clean it, you have to maintain it, and eventually you have to discard it. And that's a hidden cost of acquiring an item that we don't see past the money.
Yeah, you really made me think there. And I've never heard it said this way, which is that just acquisition of more beautiful things doesn't make us happier. And so many of us want to buy things, make the home seem cozy and comfortable because they think that'll make us happy. That is something that I never thought about before. That's very interesting. So you talked about now being cognizant in your daily life
Mhm.
about what you bring into your home. I'm sure that once you've gone through this process with your clients, you also teach them so that they don't go back to being there. So, what are some steps? If I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm somebody listening to and I'm learning from you, what are some things that I should be thinking of before I choose to pick something up from a shelf and bring it in my house?
I think it's as simple as giving yourself a little bit of time in between I have a problem and I'm buying something to solve it. That space allows you to be a little creative and it allows you to take a pause and go, is there something I already own that will solve this problem? Or is there an action I could take that's not a purchase that would solve this problem? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten asked by like potential clients, journalists, people I meet at cocktail parties, like, what should I buy to get organized? And that's not the right question. It's what should I do to get organized? Buying something is not always the answer. Sometimes the answer to your problem is buying something. If you have broken your phone, you got to buy a new one. That's okay. But giving yourself the space between I have a problem and I'm making a purchase to think about what your options are can really decrease the velocity at which things come into your home.
Going back to what we just talking about, how we do anything is how we do everything. We talked about the impact of that on your life. What about your client's life? Because you're not just teaching them how to organize things, you're teaching them to how to live life a certain way and to think a certain way and really drastically make decisions about purchasing decisions, right? Do you have any experience with seeing how their mindset changes in terms of that?
Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes a project is pretty quick and we come in, we do the project in 2 or 3 weeks, everything looks great, the clients are happy, we leave and we never hear from them again. So I don't really know if any major mindset shift took place. But sometimes I work with clients over a much longer period of time. Generally, if it's a bigger project or if there's more emotional baggage attached to the project, it'll take longer. And in those cases, I can see the thinking start to shift and they'll tell me, they'll say, I have you in my brain. I'm thinking of you. When I'm online shopping, when I go to Amazon, I go, oh, what would Lucy say? What would she think about this purchase I'm about to make? So it is funny that I get into people's heads a little bit that way. And when I talk to people, everyone's needs are different. And so I have one client who just loved when I said this. And she says it to herself all the time. She asked me about a particular organizing product. Should I buy this? And I said, that can be a good solution for some people, but for you, I don't think so. And I explained to her why. I don't think this is going to work for you because of what I know about your lifestyle, the way you move in your space, blah, blah, blah. And she says that she thinks, for you, no, all the time.
Funny. So if I'm listening to this, right, and maybe I'm at a place in my life where I can't hire an expert like yourself, but I do want to get started on this, right? I want to do something, anything that I can to organize my life a little bit more. You already give a lot of tips about realizing the importance of each item in your house, understanding how it impacts you on a daily basis, and then starting to slowly make decisions about if you want to keep it or not. What are some other following steps that they can take to just get things to a certain level of organization in their house?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the decluttering is off the top the most important part. And I just want to emphasize that again, because there are so many problems that people have that once we've decluttered, those problems no longer exist. And actually, the organizing becomes very simple. And the process of decluttering teaches you so much. It teaches you what you overbuy. It teaches you what you have that you don't use. It teaches you what you're missing. You find things you lost. Almost every session with a client, they'll say to me, oh my God, I've been looking for that. So decluttering is not just about opening up space. The process will teach you a ton. And it's something that you can do in bite-sized chunks. You can do half an hour at a time. You can do like a couple hours on a weekend. It doesn't have to be a big whole thing that takes over. You can do it a chunk at a time. So I do want to emphasize that because it's not just, I don't want to declutter. Let me skip. That's is the move. That's what you got to do.
You have to get started. Yeah. No, the idea of pulling everything out and evaluating it, it sounds scary, but as you put it, it has to be done before anything else can be done.
It does. It does. And sometimes when people have a really cluttered space, like when you said the Mark Zuckerberg tossed the Coke over the shoulder, it doesn't matter if that's where you're starting. And I have clients where that's where they're starting. Literally, the first thing we do is we grab a trash bag and we just start collecting obvious trash. And
Yeah.
you would be amazed by how much that opens up and how much people are able to see. Because if you have a habit of just letting everything lie, you aren't used to even doing that. You have to build that muscle of, okay, I got to pick up my trash and here's where it goes. And then I start to declutter after that. And that may sound very simple. And if you're not a person who's lived in that type of environment, you're like, ew, people are gross. But smart people get focused and they just put stuff down where they can. And suddenly you wake up a couple weeks later and you need to pick up your trash.
Yeah. Everybody at some point has uttered the sentence to somebody who pointed out, hey, this is a mess. And yeah, but I know where everything is. It looks like a mess, but I know where everything is. Maybe it doesn't have to be a Coke can that's half spilled, but we have all been places where it makes no sense why things are that way, but I know where everything is. I love that. So let's move into the tactical end of things, right? Running a business like this for our entrepreneur folks, right? Like just like any business, there are ups and downs, there are highs and lows. When COVID hit, there were certain things that were happening to a lot of businesses. How, as an entrepreneur, do you work on yourself to be not only keep the business agile, but also mentally resilient to get through the hard times?
Yeah, I would say it's important to have a support system, whatever that looks like to you. For me, I've been part of different groups over time of other small business owners, of other CEOs. I'm part of a networking group. I was part of a group of people from my MBA program who are all CEOs and business owners. And having other people that are in similar trenches, even if their businesses are very different from yours, feels really good. And it reminds you that you're not going crazy and that these challenges are just part of being a business owner. Because if you're in an echo chamber where you're not talking to anyone else who owns a business, you can start to feel like everything is your own fault. And when you have a sort of a group of people who are going through the same thing, you can start to see, oh, there are environmental factors, there are factors outside my control. Here's some creative ways to address these problems that I hadn't thought of before. So yeah, I think having a support system of peers is really important.
Yeah. And I love the echo chamber analysis that you gave, right? Because when you don't have anybody else like you, you start thinking you're the only one. Maybe something's wrong with you. Maybe the business idea is not good. Everybody else is successful, but I'm not. When the reality is everybody's suffering. Tell me a little bit about how clients can start working with you. Because when we think about professional organization, sometimes it's scary. It sounds scary. It sounds expensive. But the truth is there are levels to it, right? So tell us a little bit about what it's like to work with you. How do people get in touch? What's the evaluation process like and the kind of services you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's sort of two main ways that you can work with me. One is in person and one is virtually. Now, in person is what on TV, where someone comes into your home and I go through everything with you and I create the organizing system. And that's what I do for my clients here in San Francisco. And then I work in a couple other areas in California, in the Tahoe area and in the Ventura, Santa Barbara area. So people in those areas can absolutely work with me in person. And the way that looks is we start with an in-home consultation. So I come to your house, I meet you in person. We talk about, like we discussed earlier, your goals, what you're looking to get out of this project. I have you give me a tour of the home. We talk about the nitty gritty. We put a plan together, and then we get to work on the next session. But if you're not here where I am, or if the hourly fee of an organizer is going to be too much for you, I also do work virtually. And that's more of a, I'm not going to say coaching because I'm not a certified coach and I don't want to get outside my lane, but it's more of a sort of mentorship process. It's more of a cheerleader. I'm the cheerleader and guide for you as you go through your organizing process. So I meet with people on Zoom for half an hour once a week, and we talk about what is going on and what you need to do next. And we get really granular as much as I'm on Zoom and I'm like, that over there, that pile, I want you to work on that this week. It's very specific. It's very actionable and very tailored to the person of like, how much free time do you honestly have this week to work on this? Okay, given that, here's what we're going to do that's going to move the needle forward. So with virtual organizing, it's really good for somebody who's maybe got a lower budget, who maybe has privacy concerns, doesn't want someone in their home, that kind of thing. It takes a little bit longer, but it still works.
What you're doing is you're helping them set realistic goals, right?
Yes.
When you're talking about a long-term process, you're talking about how much time do you have in a week? You're not setting them up, or they're not setting themselves up, sabotaging themselves. Thinking, I want to clean the whole house, to get the whole house done this week.
God.
It's only a 1,000 square foot house, so a weekend should be good enough, right?
Yeah, that's the common thing. I'm going to organize my whole house in one weekend. No, you're not. Even I can't do that.
Because when we get into that drive mode and we want to do things, we just want to do it all together. So I'm sure you've seen all of that. What's next for you? What's next for Lucy? What's next for the business? What's the vision in a couple of years down the line?
The vision is to grow the business for sure. I have one organizer on my team now. I'm going to be adding another one probably in Q4. And then I am really looking to be able to talk to more people, just like I am with you here, about these concepts that mean so much to me, because I think it's really the simple things that change our lives. It's not the big new philosophy. It's not the great new product. It's getting back to basics on the principles of what really helps us achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And I believe that an organized home is a secret weapon that helps us do that. So looking for more opportunities to talk to people on podcasts, talk to people in person. That's where I'd like to go.
Yeah, this is to me specifically, this is such an underrated topic. There is huge amounts of correlation in between an organized, clean house and how we end up living our lives, how we end up pursuing our dreams, what we think is believable in terms of our hopes and dreams. If I am living through every single day believing that I can't even clean my room, what belief system do I have about in me thinking I can someday start a business, right? There's a famous movie, Limitless, that came out a couple of years ago where I think Bradley Cooper was in it. And one of the scenes that I distinctly remember was that the movie was about a pill that he found. And when he takes the pill, he becomes like super smart and he can do all these things. But the first thing he does when he takes the pill, he has all this energy and his consciousness is opened up. He organizes his room. That was the first thing he does. And as someone who tries to stay organized, and I've seen humongous impacts in my life just doing that, I was like, look at that. That's the first thing he chose to do. He didn't choose to go write a book. He did that the next. He didn't go to the stock market and trade. He did after that. The first thing was clean the environment to live in. So thank you so much for being on the show. You are just an amazing person who's providing such great help to people's lives and literally transforming lives one house at a time. So thank you for being on the show. I can't thank you enough for doing what you do. Any final words for our audience?
Yes. I always say that anyone can be organized. It's not a personality trait. It is a set of skills. And what that means is that you can learn those skills and apply them in your own life. So there's no such thing as an organized person or a not organized person. We can all live organized.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.